Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'd like to begin by saying thank you to the organizers of this International Congress, and thank you to everyone who is watching my video. My name is Manuel, and I'm going to talk about error analysis. Precisely, I'm going to talk about how error analysis can be an effective tool to analyze English as a second language and English as a foreign language syllabi. Today, we're going to talk about three different things. I'm going to structure my presentation on three different blocks. Block number one is a theoretical review of error analysis. It would be a very short overview because it's not the main objective to offer a comprehensive, extensive theoretical review and literature review of error analysis. Part number two, to which I'm going to dedicate most of the time for this participation in the Congress for this presentation will be the didactic approach to error analysis. I would actually like to propose a lesson plan for pre-service primary teachers. And finally, in part number three of my presentation, I'm going to talk about the preliminary conclusions and by posing myself one question, which is why should I continue using error analysis in my lessons and in my syllabus? When we talk about error analysis, nowadays in linguistics, we talk about error analysis as the study of errors made by language learners in the process of acquiring a second or further foreign language. The term was first used by Salinger in his interlanguage hypothesis. The study of errors can provide insights into the nature of language and the process of language learner. Error analysis was and continues to be an alternative to contrastive analysis, an approach influenced by behaviorism through which applied linguistics sought to use the formal distinctions between learners' first and second languages to predict errors. Stephen P. Coultham is credited with revolutionizing the field of applied linguistics in the 1960s by pointing out the utility and of errors in language learning. Error analysis continues to be an effective alternative to contrast analysis. And it is still a relevant topic in the field of applied linguistics and second language acquisition today. It is used to identify errors that are systematic and errors that are not so systematic in language learning, and can be used to identify errors that are due to interference with learners' first language, that is negative transfer. Error analysis can provide insight into the nature of language and the process of language learning, and that is, in my point of view, the ultimate necessity to include error analysis perspectives in our lesson plans. Error analysis can be used to assess English syllabi by identifying the type of errors that learners are making and the frequency with which they are making those errors. This information can be used to develop targeted interventions to help learners overcome those errors and improve their learning proficiency. Error analysis can be used to evaluate the effectiveness of different teaching methods and materials by comparing the frequency and the types of errors made by learners who have been exposed to different approaches. A very common approach is if an English syllabus emphasizes the use of a particular grammatical structure, let's say conditional sentences or tenses, error analysis can be used to identify the types of errors that learners are making when using that structure and the frequency with which they are making them. This information can be used to develop targeted interventions to help learners overcome those errors and improve their language proficiency. Similarly, error analysis can be used to evaluate the effectiveness of teaching methods and materials by comparing the frequency and the types of errors made by learners who have been exposed to different approaches, so to say, flipped learning, PBL, or any other different approach or methodology that you might think about. Some examples of activities that we can use to assess English syllabi using error analysis include analyzing to identify common errors and their frequency. This is a very classical and canonical approach to error analysis. It can also be done by conducting surveys or interviews with students to identify areas of difficulty and analyzing student performance on standardized tests to identify areas of weakness. These are a bit more innovative ways of introducing error analysis in lesson plans. Teachers can then, we can use this information to develop the target interventions to help students overcome these difficulties and improve their language proficiency. In this table, I leave you with some activities and their description they use within the classroom interventions, analyzing students' writing samples, conducting surveys, and analyzing the performance with standardized tests. These serve different descriptions and different uses in the field of didactic approach to error analysis. Then what happens with error analysis in the Common European Driven Syllabi, which is the most common syllabi here in Spain, error analysis can be used to assess syllabi developed according to the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. These involves analyzing student performance on tasks designed to assess their proficiency in different areas of language learning, such as reading comprehension, writing ability, oral communication, or oral or written mediation, by identifying types of errors that students are making and the frequency with which they are making them. Teachers, we, can develop targeted interventions to help students overcome these difficulties and improve the language proficiency. There are many activities that can be used to apply error analysis in language learning. One common approach is to have students complete tests, drills, exercises designed to assess their proficiency in different areas of language learning. Using error analysis in a content and language integrated learning, or CLEAL, or in a content-based language teaching CBLT syllabus that is driven by content language framework can be a powerful tool for language learning. We can actually say that we can use error analysis to assess not only traditional syllabi, but also those syllabi with a more alternative focus and a more non-traditional focus to it. Some ways in which we can use error analysis for to assess the Common European Framework driven syllabus, we can conduct a pre-assessment, then followed by a targeted instruction, which actually contributes to vocabulary development and leads to an authentic assessment. I'll leave you with didactic approach to it in this slide, but this is not the main objective, so I'm not going to linger on too much. However, feedback and peer review analysis are also really essential when it comes to introducing error analysis in English syllabi, as it is the use of error journals. Error analysis journals have proven to be a very interesting and very powerful resource to overcome errors and help error elimination, preventing fossilization of errors. Activity examples, as I said at the beginning, this presentation is very focused on the didactic approach to error analysis. So activity examples that could be used to interrogate error analysis into the syllabus could be using jigsaw reading and error correction, vocabulary practice and error analysis, and authentic speaking activity and error correction. I'll leave you with some descriptions of the activities. Given the nature of the presentation, I don't have time to comment as much as I would like on each of the different activities, but I remain open to talking about them in the comments or in the question sections at the end of my presentation. So I leave you with a summarizing card in which we can have like the activity type, but also the description. So because I'd like to think about that these different activities actually help us introduce error correction inside the class, and by helping error correction and error elimination, producing better language outputs in our learners. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, the main the main objective is presenting a didactic approach to error analysis in the form of a lesson plan. This lesson plan is organized in different sections that I'm going to talk about in a minute. I'd like to say that the whole direction of this lesson plan should be approximately 90 minutes. The population is pre-service primary teachers in the third year, so they are in the Common European Framework, approximately in the B2 level. you can actually say that the lesson plan has been entitled "Correcting Common Errors in Writing," but it could have received a different title, a bit more innovative, a bit more alternative, a bit more suggestive. Um, at the end, my objective is that by the end of this lesson, students will be able to identify, correct common errors in their own writings using error analyzing techniques. The materials needed for this lesson would be student writing samples, 1 or 2 per student, and sorry for the typos, not simples, but samples, whiteboards and markers, handout with common error checklist, correction symbols chart um, that could be elaborated together in a PBL or in a project-based learning session, an exercise worksheet. The procedure of this lesson plan is distributed in different tasks. Obviously, it all begins with a warm-up activity of around approximately 10 minutes, in which I ask students to write a short paragraph about their favorite hobby. I collect the paragraphs and review them for common errors, writing them on the whiteboard. Then we proceed to the error analysis activity, to which I usually dedicate 30 minutes of the 90 minutes session. I distribute a handout with the common errors checklist and the correction symbol chart that we had previously elaborated on a class. So it's a correction symbol chart that we commonly use in our classes. Then I have the students review their own paragraphs and identify errors using their checklist and symbols. After identifying the errors, I have my students work in pairs to correct each other's paragraphs using the symbols to mark the errors and providing explanation for the corrections. After this, we go to the error correction exercise, to which I dedicate an equal amount of time to error analyze because for me, from my point of view, they are equally important. I distribute usually an exercise elaborated previously with a paragraph containing errors. I have the students work in pairs or small groups to identify and correct the errors, again, using the correction symbol and the checklist. And as the whole class, as one single unit, all the class, review the paragraphs and discuss the errors and their corrections. Finally, we set a role-playing activity of approximately 15 minutes. In this role-playing activity, the students must use language in real-life situations, such as ordering food at the restaurant, asking for directions, or more complex situations. I usually record the activity, and I use the recording to identify errors that my students make. And again, as a class, we review the recording and discuss any error made, correcting them as needed or if needed. Then I leave some conclusion time, approximately 5 minutes, in which I summarize the common errors identified in the lesson, and I provide students with a handout or checklist to help them identify and correct these errors in the future. How do I assess these lessons? Usually in these lessons, assessment has already been conducted by correcting and analyzing their errors per se inside the groups. But students will be assessed based on their ability to identify and correct common errors in the writings, as well as their participation in their error analysis and correction activities. I usually set homework when I do the error analysis activities. I usually set different kinds of homeworks, written assignments, peer review, reflection activities, or revisions. Um, every of these different activities serve different purposes, so it depends on what I intend them to do. If I intend them to have like a more critically writing insight on their own writings, I give them writing assignments. Or if I wanted to continue working in groups, peer review. It depends on the objectives that we set for the homework. To talk about the didactic possibilities of error analysis, in my opinion, it's actually to say that error analysis continues to be an active and alive field of applied linguistics into education today. So I'd like to offer some conclusions of my teaching practice with error analysis. Error analysis in linguistics, so to say today, refers and continues, as in the classical and canonical definition, to be the process of analyzing errors and mistakes made by language learners in order to better understand the rules and patterns of the target language. Today, error analysis is still, in my opinion, a very useful tool in language teaching with very interesting results. One of the main benefits of error analysis is that it provides teachers, me, and researchers with insights into the types of errors that learners commonly make. By analyzing these errors, teachers can design more effective language instruction that addresses these particular challenges. Error analysis can also help researchers to identify patterns in the types of errors that learners make, which can contribute to our understanding of how language is learned and how language is taught. In addition to helping with language instruction and research, error analysis can also be useful in language testing. For example, by analyzing the types of errors that test takers make on one language proficiency test in particular, test developers can identify areas of weaknesses in the test and make improvements to ensure that the test can accurately measure language proficiency. Despite its usefulness, so to say, we cannot leave it without any kind of drawback or hindrance. Error analysis has also been criticized for being too focused on mistakes rather than on successful language. Some linguists argue that error analysis can be demotivated for language learners who may feel that their mistakes are being overly scrutinized. Additionally, some experts argue that error analysis does not take into account the contextual factors that may contribute to errors, such as lack of exposure to the target language or cultural differences between learners' native language and the target language. All these drawbacks, I think, have been taken into consideration with the lesson plan proposed and have been overcome, in my opinion. So overall, we can actually say that error analysis remains a valuable tool in linguistics today, but it should be used in conjunction with other methodologies and should be taken into account inside the broader context in which language learning takes place. So, as I said at the beginning, I would like to finish the presentation to posing myself a question: reasons to continue using error analysis in English as a second and foreign language at the university level. In my personal experience, error analysis helps me to identify common errors inside my class. It helps me to produce better feedback. It effectively helps to increase the student motivation because we are working with the material produced by the students and not some artificial produce. It helps me to improve assessment by introducing co-evaluation and other kind of innovative evaluation in my classes, and it helps me to expand and broaden my research area by continuously understanding the errors and error types that the students are making. So it also offers it's also a very useful tool for assessing my classes as a syllabus because it helps me to identify the areas of weakness, to evaluate, reevaluate, and constantly evaluate the language objectives. It helps me to assess my teaching methods because it helps me to develop more effective assessments. So overall, I think error analysis help provide valuable insight into the effectiveness of a language syllabus. So error analysis can be a useful tool for language teachers and students alike. Because it helps us identify patterns of errors. This is something I have said a lot of times in this presentation. So I'd like to finish by saying which are the benefits of error analysis. In a nutshell, it helps by offering improved accuracy, increased awareness of the errors, targeted interventions, and improve the confidence of students. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching my video. Thank you for watching the presentation. Thank you for being with me. That is my email, but I remain open to answering any possible questions in the questions section. Thank you for following my presentation, and thank you for being with me today. Thank you for the organizers, or thank you to the organizers of the Congress. Thank you.